A&E's crime and investigation event, The Pursuit, returns with a new, unprecedented season of 60 Days In.
This time, we're going in
as a united front. Together as one team.
with one unified mission.
We are determined to expose.
What's really going on? Get off! We signed up for this.
Would you?
60 Days In. New episode tonight at 9. Part of The Pursuit, a crime and investigation event only on A&E.
Life doesn't have a pause button. That's why Capella University's FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines and adjust them if something comes up. Imagine how a flexible education can make a difference for you at capella.edu.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a new type of broom revolutionizes the sport of curling. But it's so good, it threatens to destroy the sport. We'll talk about the human drama of athletic competition in Broomgate, the podcast from USG Audio and CBC. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hey, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
Our resident Doubting Thomas is also here, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our special guest host, producer of such great podcasts, including Crimes of the Centuries and Campside's The Michigan Plot, my son, former Handsome line editor and audio tastemaker, Henry Lavoie. Hello, Henry.
Hello. Pleasure to be a crime writer on this week.
All right. So, Kevin, this is obviously Thursday's podcast.
Right. Henry, did you get that? It's Thursday?
Yes.
It's Thursday's podcast.
Thursday's podcast, obviously.
And it's Thursday.
What is coming up on Monday's show?
Yeah, Monday we're going to be talking about the Shakespearean drama that plays out in the Max series, Ren Fair.
I cannot wait to watch
Short
that.
for Renaissance Fair.
Cannot wait to watch it.
Did you guys see the other documentary that guy made a few years ago about sperm donors?
No.
It's called Sperm World or something. It's super good.
Yes. One of my friends just watched this. My friend Mary's daughter just watched it, and she was like, oh my God, it's so crazy. These people, they like selling their sperm online.
Now, Henry, before we start the show, I have to ask, are you excited to be on the show, first of all? And second, why are you here?
Oh, I'm super thrilled, mainly to talk about Broomgate, which I thought was a super fun podcast. I am a regular listener of Blocked Party, a comedy podcast co-hosted by John Cullen, the host of Broomgate, which is how I heard about it. So yeah, I was naturally very excited to listen about to the show. And it ended up being way, way better than I actually expected it to be. So
Save that
for the review, my friend. Save it. That being said, I'm excited to have you because full disclosure, some of the stuff we review on the show, like no small portion of it is stuff that you've recommended us to listen to because you listen to a lot of shit. Like as I called you, the audio tastemaker, you listen to a lot of podcasts and, you work on some good podcasts, so, you know.
Yeah, I told you about Bone Valley, Serial.
You did not tell me about
He told us about In the Dark season 2.
Yeah. It's really great. You should give it a listen sometime.
Henry gives me so much shit about Bone Valley. We're actually talking about Bone Valley in the after show, Henry, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you can suck it. All right. Should we get to it, Kevin, and just talk about the thing we're talking about?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, let's drop that
Let's not take 8 minutes to do it like we did on Monday.
Hush now. Shut up.
It's good stuff to talk about, but all right. Yeah.
It's an active shitter situation.
Active shitter.
Let's go ahead and drop that first clip right now. Leading off.
Curling, like love, is a disease of the mind. One needs a cardigan, a comfortable cap, rubbers, a broom, and stones. Stones? A broom?
In 2015, the gentlemanly world of professional curling was rocked by a new breakthrough. A team debuted the Hardline broom, one whose brushes were incredibly effective at guiding the gliding rock across the ice to the target with astonishing precision.
And his front end swept it all the way down the sheet. It ended up top 12, so it had to go another 6 to 8 feet, and it didn't curl an inch. It literally curled, like mine curled 4 feet, his curled 1 inch.
Opponents bristled, claiming the Hardline broom provided an unfair advantage. Then, a competing manufacturer unveiled an even better broom, one that practically allowed players to steer the rock. In a sport operating mostly on handshakes, the broom arms race threatened to alter the game and sweep away the bonds among the curling community.
Anyone who tries curling will tell you, mastering the physical aspects of the sport takes years and thousands of slides to get right. And now, within a month, all it took to be good was knowing how to use a goddamn broom.
In the podcast Broomgate, a curling scandal from CBC and USG Audio, comedian and curler John Cullen recounts those rancorous days when gamesmanship nearly won over sportsmanship in the most unlikely of athletic controversies. Cullen talks to the central figures who brought curling to the brink, but later found a way to preserve the sport. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points from Broomgate. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Henry, one of the things that you liked about this podcast was its actual format and like scope, right?
Yeah, short and sweet, man. I mean, I was just reading something by Ashley Carmen before I came on here about how like podcasts used to have these like huge, like $500,000 budgets to make like a Winds of Change or whatever, 8 episodes long, 40-minute format and that sort of thing. But I feel like for a story like this, it could be very easy to be a little like overindulgent, really draw it out. But yeah, I mean, it's what, like 5 episodes, 30 minutes each. I feel like it's perfect for like the subject matter.
Yeah. So Toby, this is kind of in your wheelhouse, right? We've got sports. We've got an obscure culture around the sports. Do you like getting inside this kind of world where you don't just learn about the thing they're doing, but you learn about like the vibe around the thing that people are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thing about these subculture shows is that you get a window on something that means a lot to people who you probably have never interacted with. So I kind of felt like this is in some ways the perfect thing for that, and that all in all, the stakes are really low, but not at all to the people who are actually involved in it. And you kind of get a sense of why that is.
Being a competitive sweeper, I felt like my job was less sacred, I guess. Like some of the art was gone and some of the skill was gone because all of a sudden I could just like do whatever with the broom and make the shot.
Because the stakes are really high to them, but not necessarily to you, you can kind of enjoy the fact that the stakes are high and know that nobody's going to die at the end or nobody's going to lose their life savings or whatever. It's mostly going to come down to what kinds of brooms are you allowed to use in curling. And the challenge for all these kinds of things is to make you feel as though that's important while you're going through. Right. And, you know, what a lot of people do, what gets done here is that you have people who are sort of representative of the different sides. So that kind of gives you a way into what the debate is.
Yeah. But Kevin, it's not like they don't make a joke out of it, right? They're not making curling into a joke.
I love a podcast where the stakes are comically low and then leans into it. Right? Or the Ruby Slippers or whatever. But this doesn't descend into parody or farce. It just tells it, very straightforwardly. And it makes the whole thing very interesting and accessible.
Content warning. The following podcast contains mentions of brooms and graphic depictions of curling.
I mean, I think it shouldn't be surprising to anyone. These professionals are mostly like, hobbyists. No one's able to make a living off of being a curler. It's like being a pro bowler. Or like one of these bass fishermen on ESPN.
I think you make more money at bowling.
I was going to say, pro bowler, much more well off than some of these curlers,
yeah. But like some of these, the male beach volleyball player, there's just a lot of things, that are fun and they make some money, but they still, there's the guy had to quit his day job so he could get to like one of these tournaments. So It's an interesting world to look at. And when you find about how chummy they all are, I mean, I guess it's not surprising, right? That's part of the thing that was the cohesive glue that kept the curling community, and that's like capital C, the curling community together, because they're all regular folks. They see each other on the weekends. They stay at the same hotels, hang out in the same bar. It's that friendly, competitive nature that lends itself to that bonhomie that really can be shattered.
Now, Laura, you are a horse person. You used to do horse stuff competitively. Don't you feel like people who are not horse people watching dressage like wouldn't be able to tell what was going on the same way? Like we hear about and watch curling and we're like, we can't tell. Like we don't know. Like, so can you just like talk about that? Because we're really on the outside of this whole thing.
Yeah. And I think that for me is like, I wouldn't say I find it comical, but I did find it kind of amusing because, yeah, that's a really good way to compare it, Rebecca. Because like dressage, I always say, oh, it's like horses doing ballet. The only time people really get into dressage is when they see the musical freestyle. And I don't remember, like, I think it was like Snoop Dogg or somebody was commentating on it because the horse was like dancing to music and they were like, whoa. And that's when people can actually relate to that. But curling, as I'm listening to this, when I watch curling on TV, I'm like, here they come again, the slow motion people. And I'm like, what's happening? I don't know what's happening. But then I'm strangely mesmerized by it because it's just sort of cathartic to watch it. So what I found interesting about this is listening to the people that are in it who can make it sound dramatic. I'm like, did I ever think I would hear curling sound dramatic? No. But this is their thing. This is their sport. And they're like, the way they're describing like how the stone is moving on the ice. And it's like, they're on the edge of their seat talking about it. And I'm like, I'm just seeing a stone go over the ice. So, you know, I think for me, that was like really interesting to hear from the people that actually participate in curling, that observe curling, that actually know what the hell is going on. Because I still don't really know what the hell is going on in curling. But I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to watching it at the Olympics now.
At its basis, curling is pretty easy in that you're trying to get as many stones, you know, as close to the middle as you can.
Shuffleboard on ice, yeah.
It's hard to tell just like watching for like 5 or 10 minutes if somebody might be cheating or whatever. But I think over the course of, you know, watching a day or two, and you just see that there's one team that just doesn't miss, right? It's just hitting thing after thing after thing. It's like, are these guys that much better than everybody else, or is there something else going on? And then if you've seen these guys all along, you're like, well, they're like the 8th best team, and suddenly they can't miss. It's like, well, you know, I think listening to this, it's a little bit, feels like it might be a little esoteric or whatever, but I think when you're actually, it's like playing somebody who's like okay at darts and suddenly they just can't miss. It's like, oh, well, what happened?
Speaking to that like intensity and like the passion these guys speak with, I think it's so funny how many like talking heads, like curlers there are in the podcast they talk to who have the same exact curling origin story where like they were like a super good hockey player, loved hockey, and then tried curling once and they're like, oh, this is it. This is so cool. And they like all disappointed their dads like in making that decision.
When Dad came home from work, I told him, and he was so pissed off, to be quite honest. He threw the bag of hockey equipment down the basement stairs, went back to work. So I was like, oh, that didn't go well. But he was just disappointed that I didn't tell him like a week before he went out and spent like $1,000 on brand new equipment. So,
well, Henry, but you also sent me a couple of notes about the business story here, the brothers and like the entire, like the industry side of it. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's really fascinating.
To me, it's the most interesting part of the podcast by far. So in my view, like the two main characters of the story are the brothers who found the company which makes this new super broom, which they kind of get their start on Canadian version of Shark Tank, which is called Dragon's Den, which is hilarious on its own. I don't know if you guys have seen Dragon's Den before, like clips of it, but like all of the like shitty Shark Tank pitches you see, like that's just all Dragon's Den is. Like there's never like a new like vegan fucking marshmallow or whatever.
There's never anything. There's never a winner. There's never like a definite like I would buy in. Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, like what's interesting to me is it kind of like mirrors a lot of tech stories, you know, about like these like move fast and break things companies that are like, oh, we're gonna make a new way of like doing taxis where it's like on an app or whatever, and all of a sudden they like control the fucking entire taxi industry and the whole world, and it's like it pisses everyone off, and like it's just a way worse and like more expensive way of doing things.
It's like big vape. That thing that we did, right?
Yeah.
Those unforeseen consequences of the disruptor, like trying to improve something, but they end up potentially destroying it.
Or like the fucking Lime scooters or whatever. We're like, oh yeah, we're just going to fucking drop these motorized scooters in every city in America. And all of a sudden people are just like crashing into each other and shit. But yeah, this is very much like a same kind of story to me where it's like these two guys who just have this idea. It's like, hey, there aren't any rules. Like, let's just put a fucking heated blanket on a broomstick. And it's like, we'll change curling. And it's like, yeah, it's very interesting to me how A, it's like that kind of tech story, but B, it's kind of coming up against this community of like sportsmen, you know, it's not like a hyper professionalized pro sport or anything in the same way that, I don't know, fucking soccer or football is or whatever. So it's like some of the nicest, you know, smallest sporting communities coming up against these two kind of like bootleg business guys who are trying to like make it big with their silly Shark Tank idea.
Right. Now, Toby, this reminded me, hearing about the super broom and people like having this conversation about whether I could use it. It reminded me of like, I don't know, 20 years ago or whatever, when that putter came out in golf that some people still use random people with the chin thing.
Yeah.
And it's legal, but it's stupid. But also when people started using it, there was like this big thing about whether or not it was giving people like an unfair advantage. And, you know, there were purists who were just like, I'll never use it. And then there were people who were like, why wouldn't you use it? It's easier. But there's always, I mean, like this isn't new, this idea of like an innovation and equipment being legal or people trying it and there being like an issue, right?
Yeah. So I think, you know, you can look at tennis and how tennis changed when they moved away from wooden rackets to these lighter, stronger materials so they could have bigger racket heads and they could just whack the crap out of the ball. You know, I remember, I guess it was probably the 90s when one of the Tour de France, Greg LeMond won. The final thing was a time trial. And the guy who was ahead of him was using a normal bike. And then he got one of those like super bikes that have the really narrow handlebars. So he's like in this totally aerodynamic position. And he ended up winning. And they were able to put it back to that technology, to him using that kind of bike. And this is not even going into like steroids and that kind of technology. So I think there's fairly frequently in different sports, there are these kind of technologies that will give the person who uses it a leg up. And then it's up to the sport to kind of decide, you know, what are we comfortable with? Like, where do you draw the line? And sometimes it's easy. And then other times it's really hard. So, you know, I think there's some regulations in tennis, but they're basically like, okay, well, from now on, we're basically going to use these kinds of rackets. We're not going to enforce the old rackets. But, you know, steroids in baseball, it's like, we're not going to let you do steroids. We're not going to let you cork bats. We're not going to let you doctor balls, all this stuff. So that idea about having sort of a uniformity of equipment, or at least setting an upper boundary for the technology you can use for that equipment, is pretty common. I mean, what's kind of interesting about this is that there's no ruling body.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So there's nobody who's going to be like, okay, you're going to use this. Like
they even have that for baby baseball. They have a ruling body. Kevin's an umpire, and he like, let's look for illegal bats.
So it's like the most Canadian thing ever. Like you hear these like adorable rules from their rule book where it's like, you know, a curler doesn't take advantage of an opponent. He'd rather lose than do that. It's like, oh, that's so nice. So it's like a classic thing that when they're faced with this, they're like, oh, I guess we better get everybody together and like have a meeting.
A secret meeting where we release the notes to everyone.
In this tiny little basement of this curling club in wherever the hell it was.
I would have loved to be a fly on the wall in that meeting.
Well, you didn't have to be because they released the notes to everybody, Laura.
I know, but I just like, I mean, because I like the intrigue. Like I would have liked to be like hiding outside and be like, what's going on? How can I see who's going in? Like, remember when they busted, what was that like group of side Republicans that were meeting in like the Mexican restaurant in DC? You remember that? And they were having their secret meetings at the Mexican restaurant.
These alternative electors? Is this what we're talking about? Yeah.
I like this. I like this alternative curling. Like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, those they're like the unwritten rules of any sport, and those are considered crimes against the game, right? And say if not like actual crimes, you know, things like deflating footballs, or, you know, the introduction, like, you know, of aluminum bats, or those high-tech bows for archery, the things that have, you know, these different weights hanging, you know, it doesn't look like Robin Hood, right? Where you have compound bows that have like some kind of weighted thing on the end of it. And, you know, it took like a legitimate examination of the gouged ice to see that it was like, you know, a bridge too far. You were talking earlier, I think, Toby, about like, it was actually like changing the trajectory of the rocks, like they were spinning like feet in a different direction. And it wasn't until one guy glided and then all of a sudden veered off, pinged because the ice was like, you can understand that, right? You can understand the value of that, just like you can understand the value of our Patreon.
That's right.
If you go to patreon.com/partners in crime media.
We're in the business section.
Yeah, that's
Henry, this happens on the podcast. We just go into the business section.
It's very smooth.
Remember when you were the line editor and we talked about this?
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can join us at different levels at Patreon, patreon.com/partners in crime. You can join us at the leading off level. If you do that, you can get exclusive.
Nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
You get exclusive podcasts like the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, and our podcast, our advice podcast, Married with Podcast. By the way, on June 19th, we're going to have a live streaming event where you can come on with the other patrons and you can ask your relationship questions. You can jump on if you want or just listen to us give out mediocre advice.
That's 5 days before your birthday.
It is. You're going to surprise me with a gift or something?
No.
I'm going to surprise you by coming to this Patreon party.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sounds fun.
Can't wait for Laura's relationship advice question. You also get an exclusive podcast this summer. You're going to be able to hear season 1 of Other People's Problems
on our Patreon.
Yeah, Rebecca, as you might remember, premiered a exclusive podcast on Grab Bag Collab. Which actually Henry is a producer for Grab Bag Collab. And so they got first crack at season 1. And now this summer, we're going to throw that into the mix. You get to hear Rebecca's game show. And I'm looking at the 4 other of us. There's Rebecca and the other 4 of us. We're all on the show.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you have won the show here?
I'd
won
see.
twice.
Henry won twice.
Don't give it away.
Can't even remember.
Who won does not matter. That is not the point.
That's not true, Rebecca.
What are you talking
If one
about?
thing
What are
we
you
have
talking about?
learned is that it does matter. It's not about sportsmanship, for fuck's sake.
I am thinking about what I'm going to do for season 2. I'm so excited about it.
You can get all that at the leading off
Tournament of
level.
Losers.
If you support us at the Bricker scale level, you get an additional podcast. It's Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. We have the Let's Do What We Do level where you can get episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. If you're a deep diver, you can also watch and partake in Toby's recording of the Deep Dive Book Club podcast. He's got The Good Girls, An Ordinary Killing is the latest book. Who are your guests, Toby?
This happened a couple days ago. My guests were Lauren Bright Pacheco and Simone Paget. And boy, did we have a good discussion. We also have an Amazon storefront where you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
My Amazon recommendation is Mike's Hot Honey, which I just bought on Amazon after trying a little bit of. It is my favorite condiment currently, and you can buy it on Amazon using our link.
And you put the hot honey on
literally everything.
But jalapeno pizza?
I put it on jalapeno pizza, jalapeno and pepperoni pizza, but you can put it on chicken. You can put it on so many things. It is delicious.
And Toby, what are your listener-inspired Toby Balls Deep Cut recommendations?
My first recommendation is the Hardline curling broom.
Oh, okay.
Very good. I'm starting off with the Stroop Club Caramel Delights cookies, organic waffles, and plant-based vegan healthy snacks. Stroop waffles, 12 by 12 pack of waffles, each of Traditina. Not sure where that was going. The idea that Stroop waffles are a healthy snack is quite something. And my second one is simply Gaia.
Oh.
What?
Gaia?
Gaia. I don't know. It's Mother Earth.
All right.
And that's the only description it has. I don't know how much it costs.
It's actually Mother Earth. You can buy her.
You can buy
on
her.
Amazon, just like you could buy that cucumber.
Oh my
God.
I want to buy a cucumber.
That cucumber was
Free 2-day
$1.09,
delivery.
by the way. I looked it up.
That cucumber was $1.09.
4 stars.
Yeah. 5 stars. 5-star cucumber. $1.09 on Amazon.
I can't believe you can do that, but you can shop us first at amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. Do it for all your shopping, whether you're buying cucumbers or Mother Earth or the latest in curling technology. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
Yes. Kevin, before we end the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Candace Stearns and Hope Sherry. Bless you.
Candace Hope, thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Thanks for everyone who does that. And thanks to those of you who don't, but listen to the business section anyway and think about supporting us there. I encourage you to try it out. You might like it. Kevin, can I go ahead and fade that business section music out now?
Do it.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. So, Kevin, who's sponsoring the podcast this time around?
We're brought to you by HelloFresh.
Oh, I love HelloFresh.
Make delicious food a priority this summer with quick, convenient recipes delivered right to your door with HelloFresh. Now, you can just choose the meals you want and select your delivery date, and HelloFresh handles all the meal planning, shipping, and most of the prep, so all you have to do is open the box and you get cooking. So we just got our latest delivery of HelloFresh. We got 3 delicious meals for 4 people. And can I tell you the one that I like the most? Actually, I really liked all 3 of these.
I liked them too. They're great.
The fully loaded pork taquitos.
Oh, those were freaking awesome.
With pico de gallo, creamy guacamole, and hot sauce. And you know what I'm so proud of?
What?
That I learned how to zest a lime.
I was really proud of you too.
Yeah, it really had. Like you said, what the flavors were clean.
They were very bright.
Bright, that's
flavors.
it.
It was very, very bright, very clean, very easy to make meal. And I was actually surprised because there were very, very few ingredients compared to like what I was expecting. It was very uncomplicated and very delicious.
Yeah, skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit.
Just go to HelloFresh.com/Crime Writers Apps.
Crime Writers Apps.
For free appetizers for life.
Ah, that's okay.
We got those, remember?
Yes.
Spring rolls, 1 appetizer item per box while your subscription is active. That's free appetizers for life at HelloFresh.com/Crime Writers Apps.
2 P's.
So, Kevin, who's sponsoring the podcast this time around?
Well, it's our friends from Quince.
Ooh, oh my God.
The weather's getting warmer. Time to ditch the jackets and sweaters and shorts and tees. Just get ready for summer. Why waste money on clothes that will only last 1 season?
Why? Why do it?
Why do it? Go to Quince.
Kevin, did I not just buy you the best shirt?
Yeah, it's funny because like I have here like this first bullet point. Quince has all of the seasonal must-haves like
linen shirts.
100% European linen shirts from $30.
I literally just bought you a European linen shirt from Quince.
It was wonderful. It fit great. It held up great in the wash.
Yeah, I love my linen shirts from Quince. Love them.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to wear it all summer long. And you wonder, like, how do they get things like at these great prices? You should rest assured that Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices along with premium fabrics and finishes. And you look good AF.
Upgrade your wardrobe. Go to quince.com/crime
Crime.
for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime.
Crime.
To get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
Okay, Kevin, so who's our next sponsor in this podcast?
We're sponsored by Shopify.
I know them.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about like sleuthing partners that get things done, like Frank and Joe.
Oh, yeah, Frank and Joe.
Who? Frank and Joe who?
I don't know who Frank and Joe are.
The Hardy Boys.
Oh, please. That was a boys' book.
Okay.
I don't want to be gendered, but come on.
All right, what about Bess and George?
Oh, they were Nancy Drew's friends.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They got it done. How about Holt and Steele?
From Remington Steele?
Yeah, what were their first names?
Remington.
Steele.
And Stephanie?
Stephanie Zimbalist was Laura Holt.
I don't know.
Yeah, talk about perfect partners when it comes to solving crimes, but what about the perfect partners when it comes to growing your business? That's you and Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling sleuthing supplies or marketing mystery merch, maybe it's those online courses for Cat Detective School. Shopify will help you sell everywhere.
Kevin, if you ever bought anything online, Shopify is everywhere.
Yeah, it is. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever or whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. And Shopify helps you turn, that even includes like out the back of your mystery machine.
That's right.
You can sell the swag. And Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout.
Sign up for a $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
Now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/crime writers. So, Henry, you said that John is somebody that you listen to on another podcast, and he's been talking about this podcast on that podcast. What has he been saying about it?
Oh yeah, well I think it was like the #1 podcast in Canada, so they were kind of shocked about that.
Shocked?
But yeah.
Sorry, not sorry, but shocked.
But he was kind of talking shit a little bit about people in narrative podcasting, which I always appreciate. Just kidding.
I do too, frankly.
Yeah, he was basically kind of like saying how like a lot of the kind of like tropes and like highfalutenness in the kind of narrative genre he is not a big fan of. Like he was talking about Winds of Change in particular. He's like, why the fuck is that 8 episodes long? Like there's all these like side tracks, these episodes that like don't advance the plot. And he was saying like how there was like these people who he was like working with who were saying like, oh yeah, it's actually good to have a ambiguous ending in your series because it gets people talking, which are like only things that you would think if you did nothing but like write magazine articles or, you know, make narrative podcasts. So I always like it when someone kind of comes in who's not in that space to make a show like this, because I have a less like diseased mind, more, you know, clear perspective on like what makes a good story, that sort of thing.
I will say that Laura Bricker is also a fan of the straightforward, what is actually happening? Why are we listening to this now story? Are you not, Laura Bricker?
I am. And I feel like we got right to the point in this one. I agree with Henry. It was like short and sweet. I got all the information I needed. And I was like, okay, this is my kind of podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And Laura, you like the idea that like these are people who can solve problems, but they're actually incredibly collegial. This is the thing that I found interesting about it, was that like there is this sort of sense of we compete, but there are the community around it, and I know horse people are not like this. The community around it is that even like the first and second place, like the tradition is everybody goes out for beer after. And like that this was so disruptive to that people were like upset.
Right. I love kind of this window into this world. Like I see curling on the Olympics and I'm like, oh, okay. But then I'm like, oh, this is an interesting sport. They all know each other. It's a very close-knit community. And when they're talking about the two teams that go like head to head, when like things were really, you know, at this breaking point during this Broomgate, broom scandal, you realize why this is such a big deal to this community, because it's like all of a sudden, all of the rules of engagement that they have been following in how they play, but also how they interact with each other, have just been thrown into disarray. And I don't want to laugh, but it's like, I'm just like, the community itself is what makes the sport what it is, because that community is like the offshoot of the actual work they're doing on the ice when they're out there. And then it continues. I can't think of another type of sport that's like that. I mean,
horseshoes.
Well, no, communities.
Ultimate Frisbee.
Yeah.
Ultimate Frisbee also does have a spirit of the game rule.
You would know, right? Because you're now playing Ultimate Frisbee. Yes.
Exactly.
As the players packed up and headed home, there was a real sense that something had changed. Usually the two teams would stick around and the winners would buy the losers a beer, as is curling tradition. But as you might imagine, Team McEwen was in no mood to buy Team Howard a beer.
Kevin, were you surprised that scientists got involved here?
No, I mean, it's a great way.
Wait, you weren't surprised?
No, I mean, it may seem crazy to other people.
I was surprised that scientists got involved.
But I'm not. That's what happens in every sport. Do you remember the first time I had to eject somebody from a game for 9-year-olds? Do you remember how it started with an illegal
You ejected
bat?
a 9-year-old?
No, I ejected his father, who lost his fucking shit because the coach on the other team challenged a bat, not even his kid's bat, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, what was the big deal about an illegal bat? The bats you use in high school are called BB core. You know what BB core stands for? Batted ball coefficient of restitution. They calibrate these bats in a lab. And it's important. The reason why it's important is because it regulates the trampoline effect off of the aluminum. So how hard the ball is going to come off of the bat. And that's a high school level bat. There's a whole other, if a 9-year-old uses that and hits a line drive back to a little pitcher, it's going to kill the fucking kid, right? That's why it's important. But they know that, and they regulate baseball bat, aluminum bats for this reason. And they do similar things in other sports. When they said, well, they got scientists coming out, I'm like, I absolutely know why. And they're going to look at the ice. And sure enough, they went down and examined the ice. But in the end, it just was kind of like a trial and error. They're like, no AI is doing this. Let's just go down and grab a bunch of brooms and scratch up some ice, and we'll come up with the one that, like, is the Goldilocks one. Because, it's all about handshakes and patting each other on the back and just coming to sort of this agreement about, this is like the proper material and design of our equipment should be.
Yeah.
And that's where like I said, the problems is that, there's like really no rules, I mean, not no rules, but there's like no governing body and there's no like figuring out, well, what would happen and like regulating the equipment is like super important. Just ask Tom Brady.
Yeah. So we watched, 2 incredible sports documentary series on Netflix in the last year or so. One of them was called Breakpoint, which is about tennis, and the other one, which I freaking loved, was called Full Swing, and it's about golf. And in golf, there is so much money. I just think people just don't realize that. There's only like 156 or whatever players on the PGA Tour. The prize money in golf is astonishing. And the sponsorship money is astonishing. And like, the opening scene of Full Swing is like one of the top 10 players and his friend on like one of the players like Gulfstream jets. Like the money is incredible. But then one of my favorite episodes of that series is with this player who's like number 80th in the world or whatever. And it's like the mediocre guy. And this whole series, I mean, Henry, it's like what happens when there's a sport that people love. And the thing about Full Swing that I also loved is that golfers play golf on non-tournament days. They play all the time. Like you don't see NASCAR guys driving cars when it's not play day. Like football players can't play football when they're not playing because they have to preserve their bodies. Like baseball players aren't swinging a bat and pitching when they're not. They can take days off.
They have games every day.
Those are called practices.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But other athletes like rest. They do whatever. But golfers like to play and they play recreationally when they are not playing.
When they don't need to.
Right. And like they pitch and putt. They bet. They drive their cars. So they live in golf communities. This sport reminds me of golf, except with no money and a lot of mediocrity because there are so many players. So Henry, this is like a pure kind of golf because even like the top players are making like no money. Like it's kind of amazing.
They talk with a guy who's like, they call like the Michael Jordan of curling in the podcast, and he said like the whole team made $300,000 or something for like a season win or something like that. Just like incredibly low numbers, but. Yeah, it's pretty astonishing that you can be someone like John who is like, a high school teacher playing curling like 3-4 times a week and be on like a top 50 ranked team in the world. Like the world is just that small and it really is like a game of amateurs.
Yeah. If you were a top 50 golfer, you are a millionaire, like a multi-millionaire living in a giant house in Florida with a model wife and and you're flying private jets around and you have tons of sponsors. Like that's what you're doing. And if you are a top 50 curler, you are just as serious. You are just as engaged.
They needed a celebrity endorsement. A celebrity curling endorsement to get the Hardline broom off the ground. Like, who's that going to be?
I mean, it does sound like more like Olympic sports, like the biathlon. Or like ski jumpers, But the
biathlon's huge in Norway, right?
Yeah, it is.
Right. Well, curling's huge in Canada. I mean, there's just, I mean, part of it is, unless you're big in America or all of Europe, I think just the amount of money that's available shrinks. And then it's like how many people are watching it on TV. Like I grew up where I got a Canadian CBC TV station. They used to show the freaking Briar Cup on weekends. And that's like a good 5-hour slog of just curling. And like now I might be interested in watching it because after the Olympics, I like watching the Olympics. I think it's pretty fun. But when I was 14 and 15, wanted to watch like football or something. And it was just like, all right, here comes another 3 hours of Scotland versus Sweden in the Briar Cup or whatever. At least that's the way I remember it going. So I can't remember what my point was, but yeah, it seems more like
the economics of different sports.
Right. Yeah. Remember when they had like Home Depot, had this whole ad campaign around how they all these Olympians were Home Depot employees.
Yes.
Like they would take like people, and they'd be like, yeah, we give them a living wage so they can like practice, the luge or whatever.
and we let them take time off when they're practicing and going to the Olympics, and it's like, and they also have to make $15 an hour, like stacking lumber at Home Depot.
Yeah, I figured like you go to the Lake Placid Home Depot, it's probably just stocked with like these world-class athletes, like helping you find screws or whatever.
Really fast though.
Yeah. Just got to keep up.
I want to add lassoing into this because I feel like lassoing is not getting the respect it deserves right now.
Really, Laura?
Laura, we're living in John Dutton's America right now. What are you talking about?
Henry, I don't know if you know.
Moment.
Do you know, Henry, that I have a lasso in the back of my car because I am a now aspiring lassoer?
You are.
Why is it in your car though? You just keep it on you all. Like, what are you waiting for to happen?
Well, you never know, and you might need to rope something.
Those guys have their brooms in the back of their cars.
Oh
you know
my
that.
God. The scene where they talked about walking into that tournament with their broom bags, and it's like we had the black magics, and it's like,
Yes.
I heard that like a Western, like, do like
yeah.
Good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah.
That was pretty incredible. What did you think, like, Henry, what would you have done, like, when you were at that face-off and it was like, I won't use my black magic if you don't use your hardline? Like,
dude, all I could think about is like they talked about the fact that there was like no rules about what brooms you could use like before this whole like scandal, and like there was that one guy who had a double-headed broom, like a kayak oar, where like one side was the super broom and one side was the other. I'm like, you could really just fucking do anything you want. It sounded like that's what I'm doing, just pulling out some crazy shit no one's ever seen before. Like,
just throw a thing of hot water on the ice, just like throw it on, and then sweep it out.
Swiss Army knife.
I might like leaf blower.
Like in the Karen Reed case, just like melt all the snow. It's so
my God.
So they basically gouged the ice and made it, go where they wanted it to go. It wasn't because people were winning and they were losing. Like the other people felt like it's taking the skill out of this, because when they're using those old brooms, they really had to, like tiddlywinks or marbles. It's like they have to like figure out a way to control something that is hard to control. And so they like, if I sweep this way and we sweep, now it's fast, now it's slow, and you do this side, like that's how they make the rock curl.
Yeah.
And if they just got one guy walking along the side doing nothing, and one guy like, I can do this whole thing with one broom, basically they're trying to give a big fuck you to the whole sport.
I love that scene where they're
not to the sport, but they're trying to like show like, let me show you how fucked this is. I'm going to just do this.
Let's show the world.
We'll show the world.
I love that scene. We're going to show the world.
And they're all going to be mad.
And all the curlers are texting each other, are you watching this?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Hey, do you remember when the Russian mixed doubles curling team got disqualified because the guy was using steroids?
No. How does that help?
I have no idea, but it was mixed doubles. The woman looked like a supermodel. Like she was just like some AI creation. And then the guy who was her partner got disqualified for doing steroids. And I was like,
it's the Russian Olympic team, obviously.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was whatever they called it then, like the Russian Olympic Federation, because they wouldn't say Russia or whatever. But that was kind of weird. I mean, I didn't look into it too much, but I was wondering, like, I know that steroids are supposed to help with like your concentration. And I think like the endurance thing might actually be a thing after like days and days. Is it really worth
risking the whole thing though? Yeah. For like whatever like marginal boost you're getting from
curling?
They don't have to carry the rock. They just got to push it.
On ice.
On ice, yeah. They're already sliding. The ice is doing all the work.
Putin's probably like, what is going to make the least waves, but I can also say fuck you to the International Olympic Committee.
We need as many goals
this
as
guy,
possible.
you do some steroids just so we can like bitch about it when you get busted.
Just have like the 350 pounds, like huge man pulling up on the ice.
Doping curlers.
Yeah. Oh my God.
A&E's crime and investigation event, The Pursuit, returns with a new, unprecedented season of 60 Days In.
This time, we're going in
As a united front. Together as one team.
with one unified mission.
We are determined to expose.
What's really going on? Get off! We signed up for this.
Would you?
60 Days In, new episode tonight at 9. Part of The Pursuit, a crime and investigation event, only on A&E.
For 25 years, Mike's has been making lemonade the hard way.
Mike's Hard Lemonade. Hard days deserve a hard lemonade. Mike's is hard, so is prison. Don't drive drunk. Premium malt beverage with flavors. All registered trademarks used under license by Mike's Hard Lemonade Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Not everything in life is flexible, but at Capella University, your education can be. With our game-changing FlexPath learning format, you're empowered to fit education into your life without putting other priorities on hold. FlexPath lets you set your own deadlines and adjust them when needed. You can take courses at your own speed and move on to the next one when you're ready. Imagine how a flexible education can make a difference in your life at capella.edu.
They say plants like music. Yeah, no, like really, they respond to the vibrations of it, which means that this playlist you're listening to, the plants are too. You know what else plants like? Organic soil from Miracle-Gro. It's made with all the best stuff like wood fiber and compost. Plus, it's OMRI certified organic, which officially means it's made with superior ingredients. And when you give your plants the stuff that makes them happy, they won't judge you on your iffy playlist. Hear that, plants? So go ahead and give them Miracle-Gro.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Broomgate, a curling scandal? Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this podcast?
Yeah, thumbs up for this podcast. I am that person that gets strangely mesmerized when curling comes on during the Olympics. And even though I really don't understand what's going on, I will sit there and watch it. And this was just like a fascinating look behind the curtain at the world of curling, the community of curling, and also this like scandal. And it sort of made me chuckle because I'm like, curling, scandal doesn't seem to go together. But it does. The episodes were short. They were sweet. I listened to this whole thing in like one day while I was out driving around for work. And it was kind of a refreshing break from some of the heavier crime podcasts that we listened to. So thumbs up for me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Broomgate?
So I'm a thumbs up. I think what keeps this from being like great is that I think like the best of these sort of feuds in a subculture are when the people who are feuding have like these huge personalities. And so you can kind of latch onto those, and that kind of pushes the tension up another notch, and you kind of identify with one or the other or whatever. I mean, I'm sure these people, when you know them, are quite different, but in the context of this podcast, there's a certain sameness. Like you're kind of told like this guy's the best guy, or this guy's like in the mix, or this guy's known for being crotchety, but they're not like over the top. It's not like the freaking Tiger King or something like that, where you've got like these sort of bombastic dudes and you're like, fuck you. No, fuck you. It's like
he's a chess master.
They're letting it play out by like, no, I'm not putting down my broom. I'm going to use this broom. So that was like the one thing that I kind of felt kept it from like getting to that next level. But even absent that, it's an interesting story. It's kind of amusing. It's also kind of indicative of a bunch of things that also hit other sports. And then it's also like, I just thought it was kind of nice that there's this sport that's actually played in the Olympics and played across countries and countries that don't necessarily like each other very much and stuff. And it's still like this sort of gentleman's game where there's not a governing body. There's not a ton of rules. There's sort of this understanding about how people are going to do things, and everybody kind of goes along with it and has a beer afterwards. It just seems to harken back to kind of sports at its purest, right? And so you're just getting together with other like-minded folks and competing, and there's not like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line or whatever. It's like bragging rights afterwards and a few like trophies if you win them. So I liked it a lot. It didn't quite rise to sort of the classics of this genre, because the personalities weren't as strong as they could have been.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up. I love a story where, like I said, the stakes are low, but it's an interesting journey. It was definitely fun. And I got to say, this is why umpires are important. Because
the thin blue line.
Yeah, the thin blue line of the umpire. Like shit happens. Authority
to be clear,
maintains
they call
order.
Umpires blue. That's what they call them.
Because of the blue shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy that there are no officials in this game. Anyway, it's without spoiling it, it just ends up being an interesting ride and a look at camaraderie and sportsmanship and technology disruption. You know, there are some maybe more serious themes here, but they don't necessarily need to lean in them, and they don't make this like a joke either. It's basically an appropriate look at a curiosity within sports, and I liked it.
Henry Lavoie, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Broomgate?
Also a thumbs up for me. I agree with a lot of what you said, Toby. I don't think that this rises to be like one of the very greats of the narrative genre, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I actually really hope there are more podcasts like this in the future in the narrative genre that, have good access, good journalism, well written, but are also simply scored and aren't trying to be something more clever or grander than what they need to be. It's just a simple story told very simply, short and sweet. So yeah, I really liked it. I think everyone's got 2.5 free hours somewhere in their lives. So yeah, you should give it a listen.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Henry. I think that something that's just good enough can be super good. As you know, I'm an HGTV fan, and that's exactly why. Because I think that sometimes you just want to be entertained and learn something that you didn't know before. I really like this podcast a lot. I love John, the host. I love that he just tells you what you're going to get and then you get it. And I love that he oversells it a little bit. And then everybody in it is just so freaking nice. It's he's it's gonna tear the sport apart, but then it happened in the past, so everybody is Canadian and that really comes through, and nobody is in the throes of anger while they're taping.
I wouldn't say cheating.
And so even the people who were the angriest cannot summon that feeling when they're talking about this at all. It's sort of in retrospect, I don't know if he knew. It's just there's a sweetness about it that I found sort of refreshing and
brimming with sincerity.
Yeah, there's just some sincerity about it that I just found lovely. And if I have one criticism, there's I have a couple of small quibbles. I actually think they should have explained the sport of curling a little more thoroughly. They do a brief explanation in the first thing. They do a couple of small things but I think that there were some real opportunities.
Is it possible to do it thoroughly?
Yes. There are so many podcasts that have obscure things in them where they get you really into the thing that they're talking about and make us really understand. And there were a couple of times in the podcast where he was yeah, this is this thing that, that's not important, but whatever. And I'm no, I actually want to know. Tell me.
In a similar vein, I wanted more noises of those stones going across the ice. That nice that.
If it's
that's
called
fantastic.
The Roaring Sport, let it roar. Give me the ambi. Bring me. There was not enough nat sound. Bring me into a curling match or game or whatever the hell it's called, frame, whatever. You bring me into one. Put the microphone on the curling stone and do it. That's that. I felt for a podcast made by USG, especially, and see, we know USG can do audio great because you didn't see nothing. We know they can do it. Give me that. So that's my main criticism of this. But I really liked it. So thumbs up for me for Broomgate. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we leave, Laura Bricker, I got to ask, do we have a cat of the week this week?
We have a dog of the week this week.
Oh, finally. What do we got, Laura?
Well, one of our longtime listeners, Sue Hall.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of great Canadians.
And curling fan.
Yeah. Sue's dogs, Beamer and String Bean, have been dogs of the week. She takes these dogs into nursing homes as therapy dogs. And this week, very sadly, she lost String Bean. And so I know Sue loved her dog so much. And I've been following these dogs on social media through the Brichter scale for several years. And very, very sad. String Bean had a, medical emergency that came on very quickly. She was able to say goodbye to her. But this dog really brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. And she put some pictures of, going into the nursing homes and just the cutest little dog. So my heart goes out to Sue because I know she's just lost a member of her family. Oh. And I hope she and Beamer are doing okay.
Oh, Sue, I'm so sorry to hear that. And thank you so much, Sue, for everything you bring to our community. You are just such a lovely person. And, I wish you the best. All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you and tell you about their animals so they can submit them to be cat of the week or pet of the week, how can they find you online?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Twitter and Instagram.
Toby Ball, folks want to reach out to you and talk sports. How can they find you?
At Toby Ball NH.
What about you, Kevin? How can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
And we know Henry.
And that P stands for pushing the rock.
And we know you can't be found anywhere, Henry, right?
Yes, of course. Don't try to contact me.
And if you want to follow me everywhere, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. You can also follow the show everywhere, Crime Writers on YouTube, Reddit, but I encourage you mostly to join our incredible group on Facebook. Just find us on Facebook. There's a pinned post there on joining the group. Get all of the stuff we make on Patreon, including early and ad-free episodes at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our line editor is the wonderful Livy Burdett. The executive producer of this show is Kevin Flynn. This show was recorded in the Treehouse Yoga Studio above the Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the Closet, in our New Hampshire basement, where we also feature one person who does all the sweeping and one person who just watches her do it. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
I forgot to mention this, by the way. I was listening to episode 5 right before I came on here, and one of the dynamic ads in there was an ad for New Hampshire, like for the state of New Hampshire. I've never heard it before.
The New Hampshire tourism?
Geolocation?
Yeah, no, it was like, come visit. I'm like, why, like, with my zip code are you trying to get me to visit New Hampshire? Like, you don't have to convince me. Like, I'm already here.
You're here. You
Get
live
to
here.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
You live here.
In crime media. Life doesn't have a pause button. That's why Capella University's FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines and adjust them if something comes up. Imagine how a flexible education can make a difference for you at capella.edu.